Martha Stewart, queen of domesticity, baroness of the bunt cake, and ironic gal pal of Snoop D.O. double jizzle, you nizzle. Now, despite her fame and her wealth, Ms. Stewart once sold a bunch of stock one day before those very stock prices plummeted. She never faced criminal insider trading charges, but she still served 5 months in prison for lying to authorities during an investigation of that sale. Enter Republican Senator David Perdue, who may or may not be able to whip up a homemade creme fraiche. He was scrutinized for possible insider trading for his sale of more than $1 million worth of stock. Now, the system must work differently for Perdue because the Justice Department, also known as Trump Barr and Associates, declined to bring charges. And now we're learning that Perdue is the Senate's most prolific stock trader. According to the New York Times, Perdue sometimes made 20 or more transactions in a single day and nearly 2,600 trades in a single term, most of which are in companies that stood to benefit from policy and spending matters that came not just before the Senate as a whole, but before the committees and subcommittees on which he served. I mean, when did he even have time to pass bills? Now, we know that almost none of Donald Trump's campaign promises came true, but in particular, his vow to drain the swamp was clearly a joke, because perhaps he, his cronies, and his family are that swamp's main artery. And the fishy financial transactions of Perdue and his fellow Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler are the latest in this wide-open, bums-out, naked corruption that we are seeing from the Republican Party writ large. This corruption isn't new, of course, but what is new is that the Frankenstein's monster that ate the Republican Party for lunch isn't just Trump anymore. It's an entirely new set of people who even Trump can't get his stubby little arms around. It's folks like Trumpian attorneys Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood who are lighting up Republican infighting in Georgia in ways that could cost the grifty old party everything. Now, the attorney I just mentioned, Lynn Wood, isn't just stoking conspiracy theories about the election. He's now accusing Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp of being personally complicit in election fraud. Here is what Wood said at a rally that was streamed on NTD.
And then he can resign. And then, as far as I'm concerned, lock him up.
Yeah, you heard that, right? Lock him up. A man, a Republican white man, and a man who is so Republican, he gamed his own gubernatorial election when he was Secretary of State so he could defeat Stacey Abrams and become the governor in the first place. That Brian Kemp. But that isn't even the wildest part of this fever swamp of delusion. Wood also told the audience, get this, not to vote in the Georgia runoffs because he says the system is rigged.
If Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue do not do it, they have not earned your vote. Don't you give it to them. Why would you go back and vote in another rigged election? For God's sakes, fix it.
You simply cannot make this stuff up. Joining me now is Jason Johnson, professor of journalism and politics at Morgan State University, Christina Greer, associate professor at Fordham University and politics editor at the Grio, and Chuck Rosenberg, former U.S. attorney and former senior FBI official. An esteemed panel here today. Jason, I'm going to skip the fabulous woman in the glasses to go to you first, even though I'm tempted to go to her just because of her glasses. But Jason, this is insane. This is like the most complicated game of Jenga ever. You have David Perdue, who apparently just buys stock while he's a senator and like finds out what's happening through his inside information and buys a lot of stock. And then now you have Lynn Wood saying, oh, don't vote in that election and put him back in because it's Brian Kemp, who kind of stole an election for himself. He's also back. I don't understand it. Explain Georgia to me, please, right now.
So, Joy, like this Lynn Wood thing, I watched this over and over again, and I'm convinced if this was a Scooby-Doo episode, this is the point where he would tear off his mask and he's Chuck Schumer. Like, because this couldn't work any better for the Democratic Party. Like, the Republicans have an inherent advantage when it comes to turnout. You know, Georgia has only been bluish for about a month now, but this is not just infighting. When you have people not just questioning the value and significance of voting, But Republicans actively telling other Republicans to not vote, they may seriously actually blow these elections. And I want people to understand this about Georgia in case they're confused as to how this state really plays out. Once you get outside of Metro Atlanta or Savannah, it's Trump country. Okay, the only place where things are competitive is just how big Metro Atlanta is. And so these people are not outliers. They're not crazy. They were in Alpharetta. That is a North Atlanta suburb. So if they can get a hearing in these places and they can say, yes, you shouldn't vote in the election for the corrupt inside traders and instead let in the two guys who we say want to defund the police, but we'd rather have that than someone who doesn't like Trump. I don't know how this works. I don't know how this Mobius strip of campaign messaging works, but it doesn't end up working for the Republican Party. If I was John Ossoff and Warnock right now, they're high-fiving. They may actually march into office based on this incompetence.
If he ripped off his face and it was Chuck Schumer, I would die. But, you know, we're at the point, Christina, where you've got Newt Gingrich, who invented the politics of personal destruction as like the ultimate Georgia Republican villain, and then saying, oh, no, don't listen to Lynn Wood. Don't listen to Sidney Powell. They're crazy. Like, you've got him going after them. They're all eating each other alive. And you're right. It's over two senators who both appear to be inside traitors.
Yes, indeed, Joy. And, you know, I've asked you this several times. I keep asking you, are they trolling us? Like, what is happening? Because we know that the Republican Party, I'm literally confused. I feel like my PhD is just out the window because I am absolutely confused as to why it is the Republican Party has chosen this moment, Joy, because the Republicans need to hold on to their majority so that Mitch McConnell can try and slow down or obstruct any policy positions of Joe Biden. What the Republican Party is doing right now is almost trying to make sure that the Democrats win in Georgia, take a majority. Chuck Schumer is the majority leader, and then the Democrats will have unified government for at least 2 years, and Joe Biden can actually try and push forward certain legislative agendas that, quite honestly, they haven't been able to even think about since the first half of the first term of Barack Obama. So this is, I think, a result of Donald Trump in the sense that he has practiced the politics of individuality, and so many of the people in his party have just catered to him. And so now the Republican Party as a whole has no real compass, no real ideology, and now that Donald Trump is the projected loser, he will be leaving on January 20th by hook or crook. They're just scrambling, and now we see, as Jason has said, they're starting to eat themselves, and sadly, they're going to eat their young. There isn't even a vision about the future of the Republican Party with younger people across the country, senators, members of the House, governors, who should be being elevated at this moment to think about 2024.
Well, their vision is don't let them vote. I mean, it's ironic that Brian Kemp could have crushed the belief of black people in voting, but instead, black folks like believe deeply in voting and are voting, and they're just like telling each other not to vote. It's wild. But I want to get for just and back a little bit up, Chuck, to this idea of Perdue himself, because I started off talking about Martha Stewart, right? Martha Stewart got in a lot of trouble for doing a small little bit of stock trading based on what was said to be insider information, and then not telling the truth when she was confronted about it by the FBI. Sounds familiar for somebody who just got pardoned for that, for much worse. But David Perdue, what he seems to have been doing is systematically playing the market while he was a senator. In your view, is he potentially in legal trouble, and is Kelly Loeffler in similar legal trouble?
Right. Well, great question, Joy. First of all, trading a lot is not a crime. Trading more than any other senator is not a crime. But if he's trading on inside information, meaning he has some advantage that you and I as members of the public don't have, and he's trading on that, that's not just a problem. That's a crime. And if you recall, there was a congressman from upstate New York, a gentleman named Chris Collins, who was convicted of that, right? So what we need to know is whether he had inside information and traded on it, and you'd have to show that he did it intentionally, and that's always hard. But, you know, I don't think on a yard sign it would look very good to say questionable ethical behavior, but not indicted for it. That's not really a campaign slogan. But that's where we're at right now, and that is troubling. Is it criminal? Don't know enough yet.
Well, I mean, by the way, they both have been saying, Loeffler and Perdue, part of their campaign thing is, we never got indicted for any of this. I mean, so that is part of what they're saying, believe it or not. I will just stay with you just for a moment, Chuck. You've also got this lawyer in Florida, because, of course, Florida cannot be left out when the story is embarrassing. Florida's like, I got to get in here, hold my beer. This lawyer said that let me just play what he said. This is a lawyer that is apparently a member of the bar in Florida. Here he is.
Have to do whatever it takes, and if that means changing your address for the next 2 months, so be it. I'm doing that. I'm moving to Georgia.
So the WSB investigative reporter Nicole Carr is who recorded this nearly hour-long video. The guy's name is Bill Price. Shortly before it got deleted, he was contacted by the station WSB, denied that he was serious about the move, but when WSB went and confirmed he had registered to vote using his brother's address in Georgia. So basically you have this guy encouraging people to commit voter fraud and then apparently maybe committing it. How much trouble is he in?
Well, if I were still a government prosecutor, Joy, I would mark that tape Government Exhibit 1 and submit it into evidence. I mean, this is not good. If it's even if it's just rhetoric, it's awful. You don't often have people, soliciting crimes, encouraging crimes on videotape. And that's what he seems to be doing. Now, look, I don't mean to be glib about this. Maybe it's just rhetoric and he gets off the hook that way. But it's deeply disturbing to have anybody, particularly an election official, talking about committing a crime. Can I just add one thing, Joy?
Yeah.
I wanted to tell Christina from a fellow Jumbo, it's nice to see you. And she'll know that being a Jumbo is not an insult. It's our college mascot.
That's right.
I love it. I thought you were going to compliment her glasses, which is the right thing to do. Well, then I'll stay with you for a second, Christina. I mean, you've got an aide to Donald Trump being actually literally barred from the DOJ building because she's in there like trying to solicit and force people to give information that might help this sort of loony case that Donald Trump is trying to build. 46-minute video he did to try to prove that there's something fraudulent going on. I don't understand why anyone is still going along and helping him do this. But I do wonder if long-term, for these people who are going to probably be trying to get jobs in academia, going back out into the world, what happens to all of these people after they've sullied themselves in this way?
Well, I mean, Joy, we've talked about this, and we're still trying to figure it out. I mean, the only person who thus far seems unscathed is Donald Trump. He seems to be the one who's Teflon. Everyone else either leaves in shame, their reputation is in shambles, they either have gone to prison, are going to prison, or are trying to stay out of prison. I really do hope that American universities across the country do not do what they did with Sean Spicer and give them cushy fellowships, lots of money for them to sit there and push rhetoric that was complete nonsense and, an agenda that's antithetical to American democracy. So I really do hope the academy stands up against this regime. But I actually don't know where these people go. I mean, I'm sure some of them will be able to make money in a lot of sectors. We know that Donald Trump will most likely spend at least the first year or two out of his presidency trying to stay out of prison himself. And he'll probably throw lots of his former colleagues under the bus if he has to, because that's what he's always done. You and I have deep Florida roots, but I've been in New York for a very long time, as have you, and we know that Donald Trump has always been a liar, a cheater, and a thief. Why people still continue to work with him, I have never understood that. But this is his MO. I mean, this is what he's always done as a quote-unquote businessman in New York and New Jersey, and sadly he's been doing this as the president of the United States.
Well, and Jason, you've got the daughter, you've got Ivanka Trump now being questioned about whether the inaugural fund was just basically a way to funnel money into the Trump organization. She's trying to defend herself on that. So you have all of this just messiness. But I want to get back to Donald Trump for just a moment, because he's going to now go on Saturday. You're going to be hosting in my old hour on AM Joy. Yes. I don't know if it's going to be at the same time, but he's going down there to Georgia. What is he going to say? I mean, isn't it most likely that he just repeats the 46-minute video and says that stuff and nothing about Loeffler and Perdue?
Yeah, so like if you've ever been, pre-pandemic to a wedding where somebody takes the microphone and they talk nothing about the bride and groom, they just talk about themselves and traffic and their marriage for 45 minutes, that's what this is going to be, right? Like Donald Trump is not going to come down there and do an actual campaign event. He's going to come down there and scream and yell, and he's going to, it's going to be Festivus. It's going to be the airing of grievances of all the people who haven't treated him properly, and then in the end, he'll mispronounce Kelly Loeffler's name, he'll compare Purdue to chicken, and then he'll walk off stage. I don't think people understand just how insignificant Trump himself is going to be when he goes down there. And look, I get it. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he doesn't show, then the Republicans in the red part of the state may say, oh, my gosh, these guys aren't loyal enough. But he is no longer helpful. The data is out there. Donald Trump's rallies don't help as much. And here's something else, Joe. I want to say this really quick about the guy in Florida, talking about, illegal voting, everything else like that. At some point, some of these lawyers have to be challenged. Some of these lawyers need to be disbarred. Some of these lawyers need to be suspended. They need to be censured. The only bar they can be a part of would be like Moe's or Patty's Pub or something. No real bar in any state should allow these people anymore. And if the Biden administration wants to stop these kinds of frivolous lawsuits going forward, they need to start investigating these people and have them removed from having their legal licenses.
Well, I mean, and that is a good question. Before we go, we are a little bit out of time, but I'm going to play just one more thing, because there is another Barr, which is Bill Barr, William Barr, who I wonder why, if he shouldn't have the same sort of sanctions facing him, to be honest, based on the things he's done. Let me really quickly play you what Trump had to say about whether he's confident in him still.
Do you still have confidence in Bill Barr?
Ask me that in a number of weeks from now. They should be looking at all of this fraud. This is not civil. He thought it was civil. This is not civil. This is criminal stuff. This is very bad criminal stuff.
Chuck, you know William Barr. If, in fact, he gets fired by Donald Trump, what becomes of him? He's torched his reputation. I can't imagine what becomes of him after this is all over.
Yeah, I don't think there's much he can do to save his reputation among those of us who worked in the Department of Justice, Joy. I mean, the fact that he said the other day that, the earth is round and that the sun rises in the east, essentially that there was no evidence of criminal election fraud doesn't get him many points in my book. He's gone way too far and lied too often. He lied about the contents of the Mueller report. He undermined confidence in the Department of Justice among us alum. Yeah. When he intervened on behalf of the president for Flynn and Stone. I don't think there's anything he can do at this point to save his legacy.
Yeah. There is no laundering that reputation. Jason Johnson, Christina Greer, Chuck Rosenberg, thank you all very much. You were great. And be sure to check out the latest episode of Chuck's podcast.